Be opened.
I understand that there is an agreement between the parties to have some brief statements. I now recognize the member for Chilliwack-Hope.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today on behalf of the official opposition to offer my thoughts and prayers to the Prime Minister, his wife, all parliamentarians, and indeed all Canadians who are experiencing or know someone affected by COVID-19. I would also like to thank all public health officials and frontline healthcare workers who are working around the clock to keep Canadians healthy and safe. J'aimerais également remercier tous les responsables.
I would also like to thank all public health officials and representatives, first-line representatives of our healthcare system to ensure the health and safety of Canadians.
These are extraordinary times. With the World Health Organization declaring COVID-19 a global pandemic, it is incumbent on everyone to exercise the highest degree of caution. My colleagues and I, in direct collaboration with our friends across the aisle, have come to an arrangement to suspend Parliament while ensuring about the Government of Canada's management of this pandemic. And while we understand that COVID-19 does not respect borders, the government can consider measures to further contain the virus from spreading, such as more vigorous screening upon entry, mandatory quarantine for those who do enter from high-risk countries, or potentially stopping incoming and outgoing flights from high-risk areas. The government relying on Canadians to have enough supplies to weather the pandemic is simply not enough. Canadians need to be reassured that the government is prepared to assist and support those affected by the coronavirus. We also need to see a comprehensive plan to protect the health and safety of all Canadians. Les Canadiens doivent être rassurés que le gouvernement est prêt.
Canadians can be reassured that their government is ready to help them and to support people affected by the coronavirus. We will also have a complete plan to protect the health and safety of all Canadians.
The official opposition will continue to do our elected duties outside of the confines of Parliament and will continue to press the government for the answers Canadians deserve. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Stay healthy. God bless you all, and God bless Canada.
I thank the member for Chilliwack-Hope. Je reconnais maintenant le député de Belleuil.
I now recognize the member for Belleuil-Chambly. Madam Speaker, in terms of procedure, I'm going to react to a motion that has not yet been officially tabled. I'll do it anyway, and I would like to first of all thank you, and I want to recognize the courage of Quebecers who are worried about the spread of a virus that can threaten people's lives. I wish a swift recovery to all those that are affected or will be affected in the next several weeks, especially the spouse of the Prime Minister. I hope that with wisdom and discipline, we'll be able to react to the challenge before us. We have a natural propensity to play politics, but now we are going to protect the common good. That is what the Bloc Québécois intends to do. The interruption of Parliament's work does not mean that the Bloc Québécois will be less present or less vigilant in the face of anything that could undermine Quebec's interests. The Bloc will always put forward proposals to better represent those interests. In the face of the vigor and the speed of the spread of the coronavirus, many proposals have been made. Only history will be able to tell us what was the appropriate response, and we will have to learn from it. Maybe some measures went overboard, maybe some were insufficient. Our protocol at the borders, personal protection equipment, choices for quarantine, and for some, a type of closure. The acceleration of the slowdown of an economic crisis, if I may say it that way, is something we would like to be avoided, but history teaches us that the first victims of a crisis are those who are most vulnerable. You will understand that the Bloc Québécois insists that the EI system needs to be improved, and we need to better protect seniors in our regions. You will also understand that shutdown of Parliament will certainly not shut down the voice of the Bloc Québécois. Madam Speaker, we were not elected to not sit. We have understood and participated in the exercise of this motion. However, in the context of a minority government, every single day lost must be made up. The coronavirus pandemic will leave marks around the world, on Quebec, on Canada. The answer that we make to it will have a lasting economic impact. We have choices to make. It is important, Madam Speaker, for the main value guiding our choices be compassion. I commit to work to reduce the consequences and the suffering that this will inflict on Quebecers and Canada. Thank you. I would like to thank the Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. I now recognize the Honourable Member for Westminster Burnaby.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Avec Madame Grégoire, mais...
Our thoughts are with Ms. Grégoire, but also with the 55 Canadians who are being affected by the coronavirus throughout Canada.
Speaker, in this place, Canadians often see where our parties differ. The differences that we have, the questions that we ask in question period. What Canadians often see is the variety of opinions that are around this House of Commons. But today what we see is all parties coming together and all members of Parliament come together with the same mission. And that mission is to confront the challenge of coronavirus in Canada, to do our part to minimize the dangers of this virus going further in the public sphere. Alors, Madame la Présidente, c'est une unanimité.
And so, Madam Speaker, unanimity is rare, but it is important in the face of a challenge that is being felt across Canada. It is important for members to come together and to say that we are going to do our part.
Canadians come together when there are challenges. That has always been the hallmark of our character. And today, as we know, public health officials have told us that it is important for members of Parliament, like everyone else in Canada, to maintain that social distancing that is so important to assure that we do not see a rapid multiplication of the virus. Our health officers across the country, and I'd like to shout out to Dr. Bonnie Henry from British Columbia, have been tirelessly working to ensure that Canadians understand the implications of not having that social distancing. And the reality of our parliamentary life is that as we travel across the country, it is possible that if we did not take this hiatus, that we could have members of Parliament bringing the virus back here, or members of Parliament taking the virus from Ottawa to their home constituencies. Alors, c'est clair, Madame la Présidente, que...
It is clear that we have to do our part. We have to follow the instructions of our officers of health who have highlighted the importance of maintaining social distance to ensure that the virus does not spread.
So in the meantime, Madam Speaker, we will be where we should be, in our ridings assisting our constituents, pressing to make sure that those workers that have to make often that difficult choice between putting food on the table or going to work when they know that they should be putting themselves in self-quarantine are taken care of. Making sure that we are absolutely funding and investing in a healthcare system to maintain a healthcare system that is able to meet the challenge of the virus. And we have to make sure that Indigenous communities are not left aside, as they have been in past pandemics, and that all the resources that they need are available to them. Alors, c'est ça notre rôle, Madame la Présidente.
That is our role, Madam Speaker, to be present in our ridings to help people and to ensure that we are able to help in those struggles against the virus.
We'll do our part, Madam Speaker. Members of Parliament are speaking with one voice today to say that we will do our part. On va faire notre part, puis on...
We will do our part, and today we're saying that unanimously. we're going to take a little break to help in the fight against the virus.
Madam Speaker, to conclude, just on behalf of the NDP caucus, I would like to thank the employees and staff, the administration here on Parliament Hill, our security guards who are so brave and so courageous, the staff that maintain this infrastructure that helps to serve Canadian democracy so well. We will miss them, but we know we will be back, and we know as well that Canadians will beat this virus, and when we reconvene, we will be able to celebrate that fact. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Je remercie le député.
I thank the member for New Westminster Burnaby, the Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Président, merci to.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Thank you to all of our colleagues here.
Ce n'est pas un jour comme les autres.
This isn't a day like any other. This is not a normal day.
Est-ce que l'honorable député veut le...
Does the Honourable Member want the unanimous consent of our colleagues to be able to speak?
S'il vous plaît, mes collègues.
Yes, pardon me, please, dear colleagues. May I have unanimous consent? The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands has unanimous consent?
Thank you, colleagues. I won't take long, but as this is a unanimous consent motion, I want to put on the record that the Green Party caucus, of course, consents. These are not normal times. C'est un jour anormal.
This is not a regular day. We're thinking of our friends. Members present and members that are being threatened by the virus. We are thinking of our country. We're also thinking of my friend, Ms. Sophie Gregoire Trudeau. We wish her a swift recovery. This is a situation for loved ones, for our friends, our fellow citizens, in our ridings. We're thinking of everyone who is affected by this epidemic.
We can't tell moment to moment what lies ahead with the spread of COVID-19. I want to express thanks to the Canadian public health authorities at every level, and in my own province, particularly to BC Public Health Officer Bonnie Henry, who has been handling what was in British Columbia quite clearly spreading, and quite clearly the British Columbia Minister of Health, Adrian Dix, and others have taken strong precautionary action. I have confidence in our health authorities. I have confidence in Canadians. And we know that if we gather in groups, and goodness knows, as members of Parliament, we gather in groups, and we travel on airplanes. And I think it's incumbent upon us to accept that we have to stop our work in this place and hope it's only for 5 weeks so that we can take on again the business of the nation. But we could be, and I think it's fair to say, as much as we travel on airplanes, we don't want to find, when history looks at what happened with COVID-19 in Canada, that members of Parliament were vectors of disease. We need to take on board our responsibilities. And so, Madam Speaker, join with all of our colleagues and thanking all the health authorities. Thanking all the thanking our health authorities for their diligence, and thanking the Minister of Health, because we're blessed to live in a country with responsible government that doesn't try to make up the science as they go along. Thank you, Madam Speaker. We consent to the adjournment, and we look forward to seeing all of us again in good health in this place.
I thank the honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands. Je donne maintenant la parole au leader du gouvernement.
I will now give the floor to the Leader of the Government in the House. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I am also rising to acknowledge the exceptional circumstances we are in. I would like to sincerely and warmly thank every party in this place that worked with us during this very important time.
I can assure you, Madam Speaker, that the government's priority, and of all members here in this House, is to ensure the health and safety of every Canadian. And that is why, Madam Speaker, that notwithstanding any standing order, special order, or usual practice of the House, following the adoption of this order, the House shall stand adjourned until Monday, April 20th, 2020, provided that A, the House shall be deemed to have adjourned pursuant to Standing Order 28 for the supply period ending on March 26, 2020. The 8th allotted day shall be the final allotted day. The order for the deferred recorded division on the opposition motion standing in the name of the member for Vancouver Kingsway, considered on March 12, 2020, be discharged and the motion be deemed adopted on division. The motions to concur in supplementary estimates B for the fiscal year ending on March 31st, 2020, and the interim supply for the fiscal year ending in March 31st, 2021, be deemed adopted on division, and the appropriation bills based thereon be deemed to have been introduced and read a first time, deemed read a second time and referred to a committee of the whole on division, deemed considered in committee of the whole, deemed reported without amendment, deemed concurred in at report stage on division, deemed read a third time, and passed on division. There shall be 10 allotted days in the supply period ending on June 23rd, 2020. Bill C4, an act to implement the agreement between Canada, the United States of America, and the United Mexican States, be deemed read a third time and passed, and sent to a committee of the whole, deemed to have been reported without amendment, deemed concurred in at report stage on division, deemed read a third time and passed on division. All currently scheduled committee meetings shall be cancelled. The order of the day designated for Monday, March 30th, 2020 for the consideration of the budget presentation shall be under designated. If, during the period the House stands adjourned, the Speaker receives a notice from the House leaders for all four recognized parties indicating that it's in the public interest that the House remain adjourned until a future date or until future notice is given to the Speaker, the House will remain adjourned accordingly. Bill C4, an act to implement the agreement between Canada, the United States of America, and the United Mexican States, shall be read a third time and passed. During the period the House stands adjourned, the House may be recalled under the provisions of Standing Order 28.3 to consider measures to address the economic impact of COVID-19 and the impacts on the lives of Canadians. The government's responses to petitions 431-0042 to 431-00045 be tabled immediately, and that questions on the order paper numbered Q245 to Q258 be made into orders for returns, and that the said returns be tabled immediately. The government provide regular updates to representatives of the opposition parties. Any special warrant issued under the Financial Administration Act may be deposited with the Clerk of the House of Commons during the period the House is adjourned. Any special warrant issued under the Financial Administration Act and deposited with the Clerk of the House of Commons shall be referred to the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, and the committee shall meet to consider any warrants referred to it within 20 sitting days. And the House call on the Auditor General of Canada to immediately conduct an audit of the special warrants issued under the Financial Administration Act, and that the Auditor General of Canada report his findings to the House no later than June 1st, 2021. Madam Speaker, this decision was taken to ensure the health and safety of all Canadians, that we made this decision together with all parties.
Traits that we take this challenge seriously, and I want to thank all the healthcare workers, professionals. Merci.
Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for your professionalism. And these difficult times, these health professionals work very hard.
Workers, families, to children concerned for their parents, to sisters, brothers concerned for a loved one, for a friend, we're all united. We will face this together, and we will get through this together. Merci.
Thank you.
Does the honourable member have the unanimous consent of the House to adopt the motion? To move the motion. The House has heard the terms of the motion. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Yes. Carried. Motion is carried. Pursuant to order made earlier today, the House stands adjourned until Monday, April 20th, 2020 at 11 a.m. pursuant to Standing Orders 28.2 and 24.1. Conformément à l'ordre.
Pursuant to an order adopted earlier today, the House is now deemed to be adjourned until April 20th, 2020 at 11 a.m. pursuant to Standing Order 24.1.